the audit evidence gathering techniques. So here we're talking about how do we gather evidence, how do we collect evidence. So we have stock taking, use of an expert, analytical procedures, sampling, data's confirmation, bank confirmation letter, use of computers. But now they will not look at all areas. Some of these are covered in lower levels, so you just have to read them maybe just for knowledge, but in your book they have not been included. But stock taking has just been mentioned that it is very important. They have just written maybe 2 to 3 pages about it. So stock taking is the first issue you need to have knowledge about. We'll just summarize it because at this area you will not be asked crucial questions on stock taking. Okay, so remember we have said one of the procedure which auditors conduct is observation. But we have said the weakness of the observation is that it's only reliable when the auditor is in attendance. When you're trying to do stock taking, you are in observation. You will not be the one doing stock taking, you're just going to attend. So why are you going to attend the stock taking? You are going to attend the stock taking for 4 reasons. The first reason is to evaluate management's instructions as well as procedures for recording and controlling the results of the physical inventory count. Remember, management has got instructions. Instructing its employees to say when you're counting stock, make sure that every time you count, you record on the stock sheet. Inventory which has not been counted should be marked. So as an auditor, you will have the instructions with you and try to check whether these people are following those instructions. That's the first reason. The second reason is you need to observe the performance of the count procedures. So how are people performing? Are they performing better or worse? And also you need to inspect the inventory. Is the inventory available? And you also need to perform test counts. So as they're counting the inventory, if they say there's 200 items of salt, then confirm that there are 200 items of stock. Now, why is inventory counting important? Because inventory is material. Inventory is also always a material figure. Because it's a material figure, auditors must obtain sufficient, appropriate audit evidence. So in your book, they just discussed about these issues. But on your free time, maybe just remind yourself the knowledge, not only for the sake of the exams, you can also look at I've written the summary notes for you to look at them if you are just interested, if you want to refresh your knowledge on stock taking, because here they've just said this was already covered. They don't want us to focus muchly on stock taking, but it's important just for knowledge. So stock taking will take place in 4 areas. When you are planning attendance at inventory count, what should you do as an auditor? When you are attending the inventory count, when the inventory has been counted, and when inventory is held by third parties, what should we do? So these summarize them, you can look at them, but we should look at those which are very important at this syllabus. The second way of getting evidence apart from stock taking is relying on auditors' experts. This is very important and has been asked several times. Now we said, as an auditor, you may not have enough knowledge on certain items. So you might consult 2 people. You might either consult a management expert, somebody who is not an auditor, but has got an area on financial statement. So who invites a management expert is the management of your client, not you as an auditor. Now on auditor's expert, it's you as an auditor, you are going to invite somebody. So if you see that you like knowledge on a certain area as an auditor, you can call for experts. Maybe they've been auditing equipment, those sorts of equipment for a long period of time, so you can invite them to do so. Okay, so what is an auditor's expert? An auditor's expert is an individual or organization that has expertise in a field other than accounting or auditing, whose work in that field is used by the auditor to assist the auditor in obtaining sufficient appropriate evidence. Let's give an example. There is you are auditing a company which produces chemicals, and within that company which produces chemical, there's a certain machinery which is there to control pollution. So as an auditor, you have never heard of this before, but you have heard that there's someone else who is an auditor but has got knowledge of how this machine operates. Then you can invite that person to assist you in some areas. Maybe you don't know the useful life. Maybe you don't know when this machine or the indicators of impairment, for example, of this machine. This auditor is going to give you a clue. That's an auditor's expert. Under which areas can an auditor, not all, but we'll just provide a few areas, under which area can you use an expert? For example, when you're trying to value land and buildings, so you don't have knowledge, you can call somebody who has knowledge in land and building, maybe an architecture or a valuer. And also issues of work in progress or inventory evaluations, you can also call somebody. And also issues of expiry dates, obsolescence, so somebody can come in to help you. Legal opinions, including expert opinions on possible outcomes of litigation disputes, you can invite a lawyer to help you in such decisions. So what are the duties of an expert? If you have invited somebody to help you in your audit area as an auditor, what is this person expected to do? So the expert can assist you in the following areas, not the only ones, but these are the main areas. One, when you are trying to obtain an understanding of the entity and its environment, including its internal control. Remember, the first stage in planning, the most important stage is understanding the entity and its environment. So when you want to understand an entity, you have never audited a bank before. So you can invite somebody who has good knowledge of the bank to help you understand it. In that way, you can easily identify the risks. So that also gives us the second point. The other reason is when you're trying to determine and implement overall responses to assess risks at the financial statement level. When you have identified the significant risks, how do you respond to them? So the expert can help you to do that. Also, when designing and performing further audit procedures to respond to assess risk at the session level. So when you need to come up, for example, if I identified fraud, what audit procedures can I use to identify this fraud? The expert can help you. Also, when you're trying to evaluate the sufficiency and the appropriateness of audit evidence obtained, informing an opinion on the financial statement. So when you want to try to assess whether the evidence that you have gathered is sufficient as well as appropriate, is it enough or not? So this expert can help you. As well as the quality, that's appropriateness. Now, before you choose an expert, there are some factors which you look at, right? So you look at competence of this person, the capabilities of the expert, as well as objectivity of the expert. So you look at these areas when you're trying to assess competence, capability, and objective of the expert. Number one, look at personal experience with previous work done by the expert. If you have worked with this person before, maybe this person helped you to audit another company in the same area. So if this person was very competent previously, you can rely on this expert. Or this individual did not work with you, but he has expertise in the area that we are trying to audit, then that person can be trusted. But sometimes you can just discuss with the expert. You say, which areas are you competent in? Maybe I'm good at evaluations, I'm good at this. The expert will highlight you. So by just discussion, you can get some knowledge. You can also discuss with other people who are familiar with the expert's work. So look for other people who have worked with this expert. If you can't find them, maybe you can ask directly from him to say, can you give me contact details of the clients that you worked with before? You can look at the expert's qualification, membership of professional body or industry association, and license to practice. All those should be looked at. You can also look at published papers or books by the expert. So which books has he published? What papers has he written? Articles. And also the audit firm's quality control policies and procedures. So look at the quality control procedures which were executed by this expert. How was work supervised? How was work reviewed? How was work monitored? All those issues should be considered. Remember, at this level, you'll be applying, so you'll not be memorizing, but you'll be applying. But of course, when we start looking at the questions, I'll be trying to remind you how we're applying this knowledge. Now, as an auditor, there are some items you have to agree with the expert that you've hired. So one, you can agree on the nature, scope, and objective of the audit. For instance, why are you trying to call this expert to help you on the audit of equipment? So you say, I want you to help me on the audit of equipment because I don't understand the useful life. So explain to him why you are trying to get from this audit. And you can also discuss with the expert roles and responsibilities of the auditor and the expert. So your law will just be to determine useful life of this machine. Your law will be to assess the harmful effects of this machine, and my law will be to produce procedures. So all these things will be discussed, and also you can discuss about the nature, timing, and extent of communication between the auditor and auditor's experts, including the form of any report. So how are you going to communicate with the two? When the expert is done with the work, how is he going to report to you? All those issues should be discussed. And also confidentiality requirements. Remember, this expert has worked with several companies, so you should keep confidentiality. You as an auditor should keep confidentiality agreements. Also, this expert, because you are using his work, you are not supposed to reveal to other individuals. Remember, these issues will still be discussed at the planning stage, whether we should use an expert or not. Now, after this expert has provided his advice, how do we evaluate his work to say this person has performed or is not performing? So we look at 3 areas when we're trying to evaluate his work. Number 1, the relevance and reasonableness of the expert's work and consistency with other audit evidence. So the work which is providing, is it relevant to our work? For instance, you are auditing an equipment and you have asked the expert to provide you with additional work on that equipment. And the expert is trying to give you maybe details of the purchase price of the equipment, or maybe which hospitals are using the same equipment. That's not relevant. So you should only provide you with information that is relevant to the audit. 2, the relevance and reasonableness of any assumptions and methods used. So the assumptions which is using, are they relevant? For instance, to say this machine in the next 3 years it will increase by 60%. How are you sure that it will increase by 60%? And also the relevance, completeness, and accuracy of the source data used. The data which this person is using, are they accurate? So you can look at, if he's using a software to determine useful lives, you look at the version of the software. All those issues should be considered. Okay, so that's how we use the auditors experts in auditing.